right, here we go. Keep talking now. Sorry. Flip Burger is on the clock.
First pick is up, is on the clock, and we'll wait for that one. Christian McCaffrey, no surprise. And we have an absentee. We have, what, two non-attendees that may be the auto pick. That's fine. Give us a chance to analyze.
Unless they're on a phone that doesn't show things like other commissioners, but we'll find out.
Yeah, possibly. But, you know, for future reference, as we send out the invites to these things, if you accept them, show up. That would be great. And look, it makes it a little more fun to have full drafts. We can pull this off either way. But really appreciate the people who have joined in to give us the time to do this. This will go relatively quickly again with a 60-second clock. The outliers here who have not shown up or may show up later will give us a little bit of time to analyze the picks that have been made. And the Christian McCaffrey pick needs no analysis. Look, Christian McCaffrey expecting his touches to decline significantly. Will it be 400? Probably not. Will it be much less than 400? Also probably not. Saquon Barkley goes at pick 2. And B. Scully is there now in person.
Yes, well, hopefully you made that pick. What is this, MNB Slappers?
Yeah, that's a fantastic username there. Mine is Football Diehard, a little more traditional. Everyone teach their own. See the comments coming in. I don't know if anyone's going to get a kicker here. Funny, I'm hosting Fantasy Dirt with Michael Fabiano on Sirius today. We had a kicker on, Blair Walsh, who discussed how we could improve the scoring to make kickers more valuable. And somewhere Jake Seeley, our friend from The Athletic, was covering his ears and yelling angrily his anti-kicker slander.
And by the way, in this draft, we have no kickers or defense, and we did that clearly to make it more cleaner and get more value out of the draft in a shorter period of time. Michael Thomas goes, and now you're going to get a shot.
That's a little early. That's a little earlier than I usually see him, and it puts me in a bit of a conundrum, right? I would normally easily pick Dalvin Cook. He's kind of been the guy I plant my flag on, but Ezekiel Elliott's also available. This is how Ezekiel Elliott falls.
Yeah.
I really want to plant my flag on Cook, but I'm going to go Elliott with this pick. It's hard to pass him up. Solid workload. We know what the offense wants to do. So I love Dalvin Cook, though. I'm going to regret this at some point. That's the thing. You know, you have your players here, plant your flag guys, and you miss out. Alvin Kamara goes next. No surprise there. He and Cook kind of, 50-50 go in my estimation. And if I was drafting in 10 drafts and I had a choice between the two, I would probably get 6 shares of Cook and 4 of Kamara. I don't think you can go wrong there.
And that's another good point as we wait for Lumberjack 627. Sometimes when you are in a handful of drafts, it's an interesting thing to think about mixing up your roster. And if you put everybody, if you take the first guy, one guy 8, 9, 10 times, and he has a bad year, then you're hosed.
Yeah, interesting that, Kamara talked a little bit of, again, he's mentioned it a couple times this offseason, how he was playing at less than full speed. Look, the 6 touchdowns were an anomaly. Expecting his touchdowns to go up is not a shock. In fact, and there goes Dalvin Cook expected. Our friend Cynthia Freeland at NFL Network did a piece where she studied, put out her projections based on her computer model and simulations that basically said that she's predicting Kamara to be the high scorer of TDs. So Derrick Henry and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Question about the backfield in Baltimore from Jordan Maddox on YouTube as you make your pick, Emil. Look, I think it's, this is one where I think people are going to I expect J.K. Dobbins to come on, but we don't know that. So when you look at the current ADPs, I think the price is built in, but it does seem like Mark Ingram is dropping maybe to a point where he's becoming a value, and maybe people are overthinking it and going a little early on Dobbins. I like them both, but Emil takes Kenyon Drake. How do you feel about that one, Emil?
Oh, you know, it's not too bad. It's about where you got to take him. It's incredible how, as you evolve into, you know, 3 or 4 months ago, trying to think about where these guys would fall and how you think you could get Drake in the second, third round. And once people do their analysis, things can change. Here he is, you know, he's like 6th or 7th running back, and he's going in the first round.
Yeah,
I like him.
I had a question
you know,
here.
We've seen him, you know, for half a year, and we know what he can do. Okay, what you got a question?
Yeah, someone asking if the strategy changes at the 4 spot with standard scoring, you know, non-PPR. For example, does Henry rise? And I think that's for me what happens is the value of a couple guys rise a little bit, not a much, but in that first round, yeah, Henry would rise up some.
And Michael Thomas would probably slide down a few spots also.
Yeah, I think that would probably be you would see a couple guys slide up. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has risen quickly. Emil, are you buying into this ADP? This is where you're going to have to draft him, people, if you want him. This is a little later that he's going now. I think the latest on Fantasy Calculator is 1.6. So I don't know how you feel about that. We're drafting a lot of guys at their ceiling. We're drafting him at an unseen or, you know, without seeing what that ceiling might be and an anticipated ceiling. Are you okay with that?
Well, it's a tough one. I have a tough time with that, although the coach of Kansas City has had, you know, a rookie who's finished in the top 10 a number of times, and this guy has a lot of talent, but you're going to have to pay for him. You know, you're taking a guy in the middle to late first round, he better produce, and you know, you could take a veteran who already has a past, has a history. First tight end just went. I feel uneasy about it, but at the same time, maybe it's a good pick.
I think Travis Kelce and George Kittle expected to go in this round. We could see both quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, go in this round. Certainly, some of those guys will be gone before the third round is over. I would almost bet, if not the second round. And so Philip Kleins is asking if it's crazy to draft Mahomes or Lamar in the second round. It's not crazy. I mean, you're likely not going to get them if you want them if you wait until the third round. It's possible, but probably not. Most of the drafts I see them going, and they've kind of changed the marketplace. And so, look, I'm still thinking I'm getting great value. What you want to do, Philip, is go to your commissioner site or break out my fantasy GM tool on our site and kind of look at check the stats from your commissioner service and check the average weekly scoring of quarterbacks. And that will kind of reveal, you know, like Lamar Jackson was way higher than everybody, right? So maybe he merits that pick. Mahomes wasn't last year because he missed some time. But if you look at the rest of the quarterbacks, the separation in average weekly scoring is very narrow, just not as much as you'd think. And that's something worth investigating as you're making these decisions on when you're going to go quarterback early. So you might find that Matthew Stafford, the weeks he plays, was scoring well over 20 points, close to what Pat Mahomes was scoring, or maybe more. And so these are the kind of, you know, things that you want to look for. It's that week-to-week scoring and consistency. We've had it after Travis Kelce. Look, I love that Joe Mixon pick at the end of round one. The coach today talking about the more touches he gets, the better they like him, the better he is. And I think if they can get ahead a little bit, it would be great. You might see them actually be able to really use him. That said, they ran the hell out of him from behind last year. So not surprising. Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones go after Travis Kelce, Austin Eckler, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones. So we're midway through the second round, and no real surprises here for me. How about you, Emil?
No, not yet. It's about right. You know, it was difficult on my second pick. I ended up going running back. I really could have taken Julio or Devontae, but I decided there's fewer running backs, and I can hopefully get a couple steals and some decent receivers and pile some up later. If I had a really incredible sleeper running back that I felt really comfortable about, that I could get in the 4th or 5th round, I wouldn't have taken Austin Eckler. I would have taken a receiver. But I don't really have that in my arsenal right now.
So my pick will be coming up fairly soon. I like kind of being on this end of this, you know, so I can get a pick here. You know, I have some flexibility since I'm coming around fairly quickly. I can look at the range, you know, let's say I want to come out of this with 2 running backs. Do I want to get a tight end here? Do I want to get a quarterback here? Take that chance, or what is the value of running backs, and who can I get if I wait until I come around, or any of the position, the skill position, whether it's wide receiver or if I like the tight ends. I mean, that band of tight ends is pretty narrow for me at the upper end. So if I miss out on that, I'm not going to be interested. If I miss out,
and also the first.
Yeah, I probably would have taken George Kittle there had he been available. So I'll probably just get a second running back here. I know there's a lot of talk this week, especially if you check the news on the Football Diehard site. You'll see the running back in Cleveland has been of some question. I'm still pretty okay with taking Nick Chubb here, as I just did. I know a lot of talk about a 50-50 split. That was an good opinion article by one writer. I don't know that that's how Kevin Stefanski does things. So I'm okay with Chubb this late in the second round. Surprised at how far he's fallen in general, but I kind of get it. The fear of Kareem Hunt is out there, and it's a real thing. I'm not denying it, but at this price, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, 14 running backs.
Would have loved to take Kittle there. Yeah.
Pardon? What'd you
and
say?
I think Kittle would have been really nice there, and who knows? Maybe I could have got Chubb coming back around. But I do think that's kind of the worry is the Kareem Hunt concern, and his ADP is rising accordingly.
Yep.
So we're rolling on through. People with
More questions?
names for their teams do not draft, apparently. There you go. Time's up. So he will be auto-picked. Mike Evans. So 2 wide receivers when you get auto-picked. I don't think that's ideal. I would prefer not to have that happen in an actual draft. But that's what can happen in mocks. If someone doesn't show up, you might get some glitches in the matrix. Still, Odell Beckham goes after that. So a Barkley Beckham start. I think that early start, Emil, I found. There's a nice pick, Chris Carson, and man, this is a good start to the draft right here. I like that McCaffrey and Carson 1-2, and we'll see who else the burger gets. But now I'm getting a little jealous. Lamar Jackson, the middle of round 2. Not surprising. It's not terribly surprising that Pat Mahomes hasn't gone. Might see him go somewhere in this coming round, depending on the crowd. So, I always feel
he could be any time now.
Yep, DeAndre Hopkins. A little concerned for me with him moving to a new team, but honestly, at the start of the third round, for a guy who would be a first-round pick if he was still in Houston, obviously. So just, and it's a high-end offense in Arizona, so very possible he could still be phenomenal.
Excellent.
And I'm about to pick away. Todd Gurley. Look, I think this is really defensible. Todd Gurley, that early third round, that's kind of been his ADP. The Falcons get a lot of opportunities in the red zone. He's a really good receiver, or certainly capable, right? So I kind of get that. I feel like this is kind of the sweet spot where I've seen him go. And I like that start. Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham, and Todd Gurley. We'll see if Beckham can rebound. He was wide receiver 31 last year?
It was a disaster year.
Yeah, it was a disaster for the entire Browns franchise, though. Let's face it.
Yeah, it's
struggle, the dysfunctionality of the coaching staff.
And he is definitely one of the most talented wide receivers in the league.
Yes, but Jarvis Landry finished as wide receiver 15. He's going crazy late based on ADP. It's a good question here from Anthony Mancini on the YouTube. Wondering if we try to stack, or do we avoid that strategy? I absolutely do not avoid that strategy. I'm all about, especially in best ball. I think it's obviously a great way to leverage things. Maybe a little less so. And I'm going to go tight end here. I consider Mark Andrews to be ready to push into that tier with George Kittle and Travis Kelce. So very happy to land him here. But on the stacks, I do think it's a really good idea, especially in best ball. And even early, I'm seeing a lot of people stacking the Kansas City offense, which makes a lot of sense. Patrick Mahomes maybe getting Tyreek Hill at the end of one round, coming back around, and maybe in the third round, grabbing Mahomes, or, I think 3 guys in the first 3 rounds might be a little bit much, right? But you could get Edwards-Helaire, you could get Mahomes, you could get an Edwards-Helaire Kelsey, an Edwards-Helaire. I mean, you could probably pair him up with just about anyone on the roster. Hill went a little earlier here than I usually see him, and there goes Mahomes off the board right after my pick. So by 3-5, 2 quarterbacks off the board.
And that's pretty typical in this kind of league.
How are you on the stacking, Emil? Are you looking to do it early?
What is it called? Stacking agnostic. I don't really look for it.
Right.
I just don't understand it. I figure you take a good player if you think he's going to do well. I don't have to score all the points in 1 week like I'm playing DFS. I'm supposed to spread my roster out. But
yeah, I think one of the keys here that I talk about a lot is, if you're going to put all your eggs in one basket, make sure it's a really super good basket. So there's that. But also, there's something to be said for, and you're right, it's a great DFS tactic, and we use the hell out of it in tournaments. But one of the things that maybe I'm more inclined to do if I'm just like trying to play the value best guy on my board game is I'll wait till later in the draft, and I'll stack, a lower end wide receiver, but maybe a big play threat, especially in DFS. Jordan Maddox wants to know where we're at with Ertz. I'm a little down on him. Look, I think he's still in the elite tier. I just think he's fallen behind Mark Andrews for me. But I mean, I think you could go either way. The presence of Dallas Goedert obviously is an issue there, but the tight ends are going to be heavily used, almost as much as Andrews was in Baltimore. So, he was their team's leading receiver. Maybe that changes with Marquise Brown on the rise this year. But I'm a little bit lower on Ertz, a little less confidence in the role.
But the nice thing about Ertz is his stock has fallen, but his ADP has fallen. So you get him in the late 4th, 5th, he becomes more valuable.
Yeah, when I see him sitting there in the 5th and I don't have a tight end, I can't resist Ertz still. So I think that probably defines. I think you made the pertinent point there. Juju Smith-Schuster, I'll throw a number out here as you took him. 1,960. That's how many fewer yards the Steelers threw for with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges at quarterback last season than they did the year before with Big Ben starting. So a lot of limitations there last year, that passing attack, which at least in part explains Juju's downturn. Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, all guys I love. A little surprised to see Robert Woods go, but that was an auto pick, so I guess I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping Golladay would slide to me. I guess that was a little too much of hope. But I just couldn't take him in the 2nd round. I thought, the running back Eckler was more valuable. So
Christopher Gray
Smith-Schuster will do it for me this year.
I think he will. Christopher Gray makes a good point in the chat. I only target stacks in certain leagues and only if I'm low in round 1. And I think that's a good way to do it, right? You can kind of come around or wait until early, even if you don't go early in the 2nd round, you can come and wait until the 3rd round. I like that there as well, and I think that's where it works best. Like I said, you see like maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Tyreek Hill. You could come around and get Patrick Mahomes in round 2 pretty easily there, or Travis Kelce even if you wanted. So I'm kind of on board with that as well. Leonard Fournette and James Conner have come off. Both kind of clear path to workload guys, I think, that are pretty viable plays at this point, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm a little worried about Fournette getting traded, but obviously he's going to get the opportunities, the touches. He's started to catch the ball a little better. Hopefully he can score at the end zone. Connor, a little worried because they talk about him not getting as many touches and spreading it around. But a pretty good position there, a pretty late running back to get him here in the bottom of the 3rd.
Yeah, I think that's all a lie. What do we know about Mike Tomlin? We go back to his first thing he did. He was going to run the wheels off Willie Parker, and then he did. I think, and look, he's basically said in May that, James Conner was going to be the guy. Talked about 2 other guys, but Conner has to stay healthy. I think that's a bit of a concern as well. And maybe they do want to limit wear and tear on him at some point. I don't know if Anthony McFarland is the guy that I have high expectations for. Our friend Sigmund Bloom is a guy who is a big Steeler fan, big fantasy mind, not a big fan of that selection of McFarland by the Steelers in this case. So kind of interesting there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Okay, 2 more before my pick. I got to decide where I'm going.
Yeah, you started out 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver. I think that's, pretty solid start. It kind of gives you the flexibility to go pretty much any way you want.
Well, I'm going to go late quarterback, so I'm not going to worry about that for a few rounds. I could go Ertz, Waller, somebody like that. Or I could just take my second wide receiver and see what tight end shows up in the bottom of the 5th, which is...
Yeah, I think I've kind of dug myself a hole, and I'm forced, but going 2 running backs in a tight end, I'm pretty much forced to go wide receiver here, unless I hate everybody. Then that short turnaround might come into play. And if I hate everybody, what am I doing? I'm going quarterback. And there's still plenty to choose from, some that I'm fine spending on this range. If I don't love the skill player or the range of skill players, and I think there's more value later. Something I'm finding a lot easier.
Right now, it's my pick. I got 28 seconds. I'm actually looking at Cooper Kupp, who scares the hell out of me because he can do incredible and he can disappear. DJ Moore is actually a guy highest on my list. And I got A.J. Brown, who I always like getting, except I'd rather get him in a half a PPR, and I better hurry up and pick. So I guess I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp. But I know I'm going to leave those guys on the board and not have a shot the next round. And that's sometimes how you look at it. You can't have you got to make a choice.
Yep, you have to look ahead and see what's going to be available to you going forward. I do find this year, Emil, a lot of value at wide receiver throughout, right? I mean, if I were to wait, there's a lot of guys I really like. And that's one of the reasons I've gone quarterback a little earlier in a lot of these drafts, because I just look at the wide receiver and I go, man, I like some of these cheaper guys so much more than I like this expensive guy. That's a problem for me because I'm old, mean, and cheap. Not everyone is that. But I do think the quarterback, the range of quarterback talent this year, especially in this tier, gives you the flexibility to do that. I also think, like you, there's a ton of late quarterback value to mine as well. So I think there's just a lot of flexibility, it seems like, in this draft.
There's definitely a lot of flexibility. But what'll be fun to watch here is some of these guys who took, like Team Argram, Team 11, took 4 running backs in a row. Let's see what receivers and tight end he gets as we follow this draft. I think that's the fun thing about the mock is you look at guys like that are taking 3 or 4 running backs, and a lot of impulses is like, that's nuts. Well, let's find out what he gets, and we may be surprised the quality he gets at wide receiver.
Yeah, as I'm sitting here looking ahead at the list of wide receivers available to me at this point, I'm pretty pleased. I feel like I'm going to get somebody I could be very satisfied with, pretty much no matter what.
Shot here in another pick.
Yeah. Well, 2 of them went right off the board.
Brian Wright just came to the message board. How you doing, Brian? We're getting a good crowd here. Oh, there goes A.J. Brown and the other guy I mentioned.
Yeah, DJ Moore would have been the guy that I would have loved to get as my wide receiver one.
Yeah, I'm going to go him instead of Kupp. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to go for a high floor guy, a guy that I think's been overlooked because of the change of quarterback, who I think should not be overlooked. Keenan Allen has had, I think, 130 targets every year for the last 3 years, well over 1,000 yards, has been fairly healthy. But I'm, getting a floor player here that gives me a little flexibility. I feel like to take chances, maybe with the next wide receiver, the next 2 wide receivers, guys that are a little more volatile, but that I still feel comfortable with, and so.
Well, you got him pretty late. He still worries me. Tyrod Taylor worries me.
Yeah, I would have preferred DJ there. I would have liked DJ Moore, but you look back to Tyrod Taylor in, let's say, 2015 in Buffalo. He fueled a pretty phenomenal run where Sammy Watkins was by far the most dangerous receiver in the NFL. Deep passes, short passes, you name it, he was lighting it up. So I think Taylor is not as bad, or the perception is maybe a little worse than it is, but there is concern, does he keep the job? And that's a worry for me.
Yeah, you put the rookie in if they're behind, if they are not doing well and they want to run the rookie, that could be devastating.
Russell Wilson off the board with an auto pick. Tyler Lockett, Raheem Mostert. Guy that's dropping a little bit, and I think maybe he should.
Mostert,
yeah. I think people are kind of spelling. There goes Zach Ertz to start. There's that question for you on YouTube, Emil. Greg Link loves the start of your team. Wants to know if any reason you passed on Chubb in favor of Eckler.
Well, the receiving worries me, and I am worried about that mix. Hunt's a quality player. The problem with Cleveland last year, and it was last year, is that everybody got touches, and they just flattened out the touches, and it really worries me that he's not going to get as much touches as we think, and he's not going to catch the ball. So I'm looking for a guy who potentially can catch the ball and get more total targets and total touches. That's the theory, Greg.
We're about to see the case where an auto draft is not great because the first guy in the queue is a guy that I'd love to pick, who I would pick if he was going to be there. He's not going to be there, and that's a little frustrating to get auto picked. Someone you were really targeting. I'm pretty sure he's at the top of the list, top of the queue. Jonathan Taylor is the player I would be taking were he available, and I think he will not be. So let this be a lesson, people. Oh, no, cut Cortland Sutherland. I'll go ahead and take Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure how the algorithm on this thing works or how they pick the top pick. This pleases me.
I guess the algorithm thinks he should have 4 receivers before he has a run.
Right, I love Cortland Sutherland. I'll be honest with you, and maybe would have taken him here. Thought about going 2 wide receivers, but when I saw Jonathan Taylor still there, he's a player I like. I get it that not everyone is as keen or as high on him as me, but I think at this price point, I'm pretty happy with him. And I think down the stretch, he'll be a solid play. And I love Calvin Ridley, too. I just don't see how you can go wrong with any of the Falcons' 2 receivers, 2 wideouts, especially. And I think this is pretty good value for him.
Yeah, that is a good spot.
As you look, Emil, are there any teams not named yours that you find very appealing?
Well, I haven't really taken a close look at it yet, but so I will do that. I don't have a real good comment right now. The guy who just took Calvin Ridley's got A.J. Brown, who I like. We'll see what he can get at running back here in the next coming rounds, because he's got Kittle, he's got a top 2 quarterback. If he can make those receivers work and get a second running back, that's a hell of a team. Singletary has gone. And,
it's interesting. The 2 guys auto drafting, one is totally wide receiver heavy, one is totally running back heavy.
I got a tough.
And one is balanced.
Pardon?
And one is balanced. Lumberjack, I don't know if he's in the room or not. I don't see him there. But his is nicely balanced.
Yeah, that's a balanced team. Yeah, I have a dilemma here because I'd like to go tight end in 2 picks, but I'm not sure if I will. I kind of like a couple players that both running back and wide receiver. But that's my problem the last few mocks and drafts is where to take my tight end. I've got guys I like, but I just when it's my turn to pick, I'm not so sure if I want to take them.
Yeah, I think once I get out of this top four range, if into the 5th round, I'm kind of thinking I'm going to wait till late. One interesting note on Rob Gronkowski, as you make your pick, you're on the clock. Kareem Hunt went off, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, a whole range of running backs, making me happy I took Jonathan Taylor. Gronkowski is said to be looking very good. Talked to Rick Stroud from the Tampa Bay Times on Saturday, and he said Gronk is back up to full size. And there you got your tight end. Talk a little bit about your confidence level in Tyler Higbee.
Well, don't have 100%. If you go to the second half stats on footballdiaries.com and the tools, and I don't have it in front of me, the man
it was phenomenal.
Had an incredible second half after Everett went down. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean when Everett comes back, they're going to split time and I made a mistake? But that's a great team who wants to throw the ball. And if he can just do half decent, I got him as, the 5th tight end? I'm somewhat happy about it. I would take another tight end in a full draft. They're only going 13 rounds. without kickers and
Yeah,
defenses.
final 5 games, Higbee led all tight ends in receiving yards, receiving first downs, yards after the catch, finished in the top 5 in fantasy points every single week of those 5 weeks, 100-plus yards, 4 of those games. So, I mean, clearly we saw that they were planning to make heavy use of the tight end. I, too, have some concerns about Everett coming back, but they just paid him a $30 million extension last September, right? So they've committed to Higbee through 2023, and I think this is a maybe a little foreshadowing of what's to come for him. Everett had just not turned into a thing yet, right? And Higbee has. I think that's enough to hang your hat on.
Well, this is what you're doing in your draft. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We look at statistics, we look at people on film, and you got to take some chances on people. You watch the experts play. They may get 4 or 5 unique players, and if 3 or 2 of them really turn out, they got a great team. So it's not an absolute. You don't look at it and say, oh, I know this guy's going to do it. He's got signs. I got him in the bottom of the 5th or whatever it is here. Is that the bottom of the 5th? Yeah.
Yep.
That's not bad.
And maybe I
could have waited on the loop and taken one of those receivers, or I liked Cam Akers. But I decided I didn't want to lose him, and so I took him in the bottom of the 5th.
I have a Cowboys fan in the YouTube chat. I'm not sure I'd be bragging about that. Just kidding. It's been a little while since they did a Super Bowl thing. And Philip Klein's afraid to go after Gronk after watching get juked so bad in Miami. Look, he's the receiver the quarterback knows best in Tampa. So, I mean, look, he's sat out a year. His last season wasn't great. So I get it. I think he's probably in the range, 50, 60 catches, 6 touchdowns. That probably put him in the top 10 somewhere for me, but I get it.
Interesting. One more pick before main Chark just went.
DJ Chark, interesting offense. Scary Terry McLaurin goes.
That was the guy. I was looking at McLaurin for this pick between him and Swift. That hurt. That hurt. Well, I think I'm going to go with Swift. I'm just going to get 3 solid running backs. It's a little bit, I don't know, boring? I don't know if that's boring. You got a rookie?
I don't know if it's boring, but, sometimes you got to make the safe pivot. I want to ask the people on the YouTube and the chat, what's your approach? I like to have like 3 guys, in my holster at any time, right? And sometimes even at that, I mean, you can have 3 guys go that you wanted and you're a little caught behind. How far ahead do you guys plan? Or is it a round ahead? Or do you have an idea of what your plan is? Being prepared, realizing you might have to switch your strategy up at any given moment, as we all do. I have a handful of players here that I really like and I'd be really fine drafting. So we'll see if they make it to me. Lumberjack, auto picking, hard to tell what that approach will be. Zero Dark 30. Pretty Bows probably needs a running back at this point, although not necessarily. Could be taking what they're calling the modified 0 RB. So I have a handful of guys here I'd be fine taking, and I love that feeling of, sitting here knowing that you'd be fine with any of, 3 or 4 guys, very closely valued. So
yeah, we can't wait to see what Zero Dark 30 is going to do, because obviously he's got one of the top 5 running backs. He's got 2 pretty good, he's really done a good job getting top players at each position, except, maybe the receiver position he's a little bit down. So, but he's got upside. He's got young guys, second year, who have a lot of potential and finished the year last year really well. So there goes Darren Waller.
Yeah, Greg Link asking how long you wait on the quarterback once that Lamar go. I'm kind of with you on this, Greg. I think 9-10 is good, and I'm getting good value there, and I feel pretty confident I'll still get a really solid quarterback or 2. Not unusual to see me go back-to-back at 9 and 10 or 10 and 11 when I do that. So I'm pretty satisfied here. I'm going to get a player I really like no matter what. And so there's 2 receivers that are in my targets. I'll talk about them after this pick. And it looks like one of them went away just now. AJ Green, I would have been the reports out of camp have been phenomenal. But I'm fine taking Devontae Parker here as well. And it's almost nice that the decision was made easy. Those are two guys I valued equally. And both maybe come with a little volatility, which I'm okay with because I drafted Keenan Allen, who I feel is not very volatile. I think he's very consistently productive. So he's the whole high floor guy. Now I go for a little bit of upside.
Yeah, and let me turn my mute off on this thing. It's interesting about Devontae Parker because we waited all these years and we kept thinking he was going to do well, and he flopped, and then he had an incredible year. Yet people are still scared of him. Almost 30 receivers have gone, and you got this guy in the 6th round, the bottom of the 6th round. That could be really great value. And you were heavy running backs. You got a top tight end. So what do you got? You got a potential to have, if those two receivers work well, you could have a great team there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've maybe come back a timer up on the BS man, Jarvis Landry, a guy that probably, I don't know if he should be going higher or not, came off the PUP list, Evan Ingram, one of those mid-range tight ends, not a crazy price for him in this round, right? I mean, I think that's, maybe a little earlier than I'd like to spend, but this is kind of where the ADP falls in line with the ADP.
It falls in line, and if you look at his stats when he wasn't hurt, which is not very often.
Yes.
Incredible stats. You got a young quarterback. If Evan Ingram could just stay healthy, he'd be a top 4 tight end.
Yeah, there was some talk over the offseason that the Brain Trust wasn't greatly confident in that ability to stay healthy, and that perhaps they'd be open to trading him. That never happened. So, here he is. I like the offense. I like the quarterback an awful lot. A lot of weapons to keep opponents from focusing on any one man. So I like that. I like a lot about it. But the health has been the issue for those of us who are injury agnostic, which is difficult for guys, especially tight ends, it seems, who seem to have a fragility that goes beyond others. I'm looking at you, Tyler Eifert and Jordan Reed. Will Disley. Still, I fire the dismissal. Not afraid. Well, they're freebies. It doesn't matter.
That is true.
Although I think my days of Jordan Reed are pretty much in the rearview mirror.
There we are.
Philip Klein's commenting
on 2 more picks here.
Yep.
What are you thinking?
I think I have a lot of flexibility here. I may see who the running backs are available, but I may go with another upside wide receiver more likely. If the player, look, I think there's like 2 wide receivers here I really like a lot, and I'll probably take one of them. I'm going to look at the running backs and see, just make sure that there's not something there that I have to have, and there's not something there I have to have as I scroll down. And there are some things there that I'll be fine with later, so I'll probably go wide receiver here, and we'll see what the auto pick does. But also, I'll certainly go wide receiver. And it's interesting. I think I do have a choice here. Brian Wright is commenting the 3 spot. It's interesting, not his style. It is auto pick, Brian. It's a weird draft for this guy, and I'm wondering how their algorithm works here at Sleeper that would pick that many wide receivers. And if it picks another, I'll be shocked. Timer is up, and he's taking Will Fuller, which is one of the 2 players I would have taken here. And probably the direction I would have gone, a guy who would have given me wide receiver 1. So I'm going to go with another solid play here, or at least a guy that I view as being a solid play, and that's Michael Gallup. Was surprisingly effective last year. If you go look at the week-to-week totals, it's been very impressive. Didn't miss a little time with a sprained knee. So that gives me a little more leeway, though, a second guy that I consider more of a good solid volume play. So that would give me more flexibility down the stretch to take chances at wide receiver, which I'm fine with. It's perfectly fine, except, damn it, I wanted Will Fuller.
And hey, we got the 0 dark 30 here. We'll see if he takes a running back. And he did. And guess what? He took a guy who got potential up for the second year.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm thinking this is clearly an intentional, at least he is here, and I think this is an intentional approach. So he's got 2 running backs through 7 rounds now. Alvin Kamara, a huge upside, high end, certainly wide receiver, running back one, with Ronald Jones, a guy that, talking to Rick Stroud again from the Tampa Times this week, a player that Tom Brady has confidence in, a guy that's bulked up over the offseason. The thing about it is that we have not heard anything about Keyshawn Vaughn because he's been on the reserve list, the reserve COVID list. He came off this week. He'll just now start practicing. But it seems like, Jones, Bruce Arians has said it. He's going to carry the load. I believe that he will until he doesn't. And there you have. I mean, that's the thing about running backs, and especially ones that haven't been productive. But I think this is a great value for Ronald Jones.
Yeah, and look at his roster. He's got one of the top tight ends. He's got one of the top running backs. Ronald, again, a young player who, if he does get out there, it's really going to fill his roster. And the two young wide receivers and A.J. Green coming back, it's an interesting process.
James White comes off. And interesting, sometimes we see the reporting, we look through the restart. Jordan Howard, a guy I probably would have had an eye on had he, I come back around and he'd been there. Some news on him today. If you go to the August update and go to the Miami Dolphins news page, you'll see some talk about the split between he and Matt Breida might be of interest to some of you. Hayden Hurst goes. The man Mike Dempsey, my co-host on Sirius, is one single-handedly trying to raise the ADP of since the day he showed up. Philip Klein's Keyshawn Vaughn, look, he needs to show a little something. He's kind of not getting out of the chutes quickly. And Jones has that's my concern. I mean, I think maybe Vaughn has a role, but he's got to prove he can pass block, something he did in college. So, I'm not pretending he can't. I see you take Darius Slayton, a touchdown upside guy from last year.
Yeah, I'm picking him earlier than I should, and I'm worried. He's just kind of those guys I like to get. Marvin Jones shouldn't be there. And I really probably should have taken Marvin Jones, but I like the young upside of Darius Slayton with Daniel Jones, and so I drafted him a little earlier.
Yeah, Brian Wright says he'd love to give Ronald Jones as his third RB. Would you feel as confident, Brian, as with him as your second RB? So two of these guys, and it's something we talk about a lot, looking down the drinking straw, or how the news affects us. So today there's been news on both James White, the Athletic, reporting that he should be in for a really big workload given their issues. Lamar Miller just signed, Sony Michel on PUP. And Jordan Howard, who the talk today from the ESPN local observer is that he should get a 50% carry share, and that might be enough at this point, right? So, and there goes Gronkowski right after Deshaun Watson. And followed by Tyler Boyd. And there's another guy that maybe has a high floor. I think it's interesting. Well, maybe you talk about this a little bit as you prepare to make your pick. But I mean, I see how you've got, Juju and Cooper Kupp, I would consider kind of high volume plays with high ceilings too, right? But you get Darius Slayton, a guy that's maybe a little riskier, but that kind of, upside, right?
I worry about Shepard with all the concussions he had last year. He really was a serious situation to, cause him to be retired. And I just got this feeling that perhaps Slayton will be the number one receiver there. That's kind of bold, but that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to predict the future and get guys that potentially can end up with high ceilings.
As you're preparing to make your pick, the DeAndre Swift pick is interesting too. We'll talk about that as well. But a question from the YouTube chat, Fernando Estrada. Hi, Bob. Would you trade Hopkins for Eckler in dynasty leagues, and season-long leagues? I might in a season-long just for a single season prefer Eckler. But I think, in a dynasty case, I would hold on to Hopkins. How about you, Emil?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if he's young enough, and with Murray developing as an incredible quarterback, I'd keep Hopkins.
Yeah, high volume attack makes sense.
Now here's an interesting thing. I got one before my pick, and I'm interested in taking a wide receiver like a Marvin Jones or maybe a Crowder. Do I skip that and go for a quarterback now that there's been 4, 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks going? And I don't think I will, because I'm really looking in the area of Wentz, Stafford, Daniel Jones, even Goff, Roethlisberger. There's a lot of guys in that late middle area that could end up being top 6 quarterbacks. So I'm going to take
there goes Tevin Coleman.
There we are. I'll take Jones now that I talked about him. He's my next
highest
rated wide receiver on my cheat sheet. And that's why I took a third running back in Swift. It didn't have to be Swift, because then I can take a lot of these receivers and still not have to worry about trying to get a third running back when you've reached that turning point where we're at the 30 or so running backs, and now you're having to get guys who may be sharing time or whatever. That's the theory.
Brian Wright has the 9th spot in a draft he's doing this year, and his first 2 picks will be very similar to yours. And Jones would definitely be his third running back if possible. So interesting there. And I agree. I think I'd rather have Jones as that running back 3 as opposed to 2, but could play out. I mean, some of these guys that you're drafting a little later, you need them to come through and be league winners. I mean, your early picks are going to, do what they do, but you need some of these guys you're picking not in the first round to come through and get a job done.
Hey, that's a good point. As you look at, I love these boards, and that's why I like to use the boards for these mocks, and so people can look at them. Because let's say you didn't want to take Swift and you really liked Jones. I'm getting the wrong direction. It was like about almost a full round, a little less than a full round, that Jones wouldn't have made it back to me in the next round. But if I thought he would, I could have taken any other. I could have taken, some other player and then tried to get Jones in the next rounds, which I wouldn't have been able to.
Interesting question here. Was J.K. Dobbins too early? I don't think he was too early going off. Or was it? I saw. Oh, he went off at the end of the last round. I don't think that's too early. I think he's the kind. Look, maybe I would rather have some of these like Ronald Jones. Maybe I would rather have James White or Jordan Howard. But I think J.K. Dobbins, looking at the build of his roster, where he already has McCaffrey and Chris Carson, he has the wiggle room, right, to take a chance. Because he's not going to need J.K. Dobbins as long as Christian McCaffrey and Chris Carson are doing their thing, and to a degree Raheem Mostert. So he can wait till late in the season. I think this is something I talk about a lot, is when you're building your roster, building in risk, versus the safe plays, and he's got a great mix of that, and that's something you want to do over your entire roster and within your position groups as well.
And
right.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Greg Link asked a question if I was going best player available here. I have 3 wide receivers, 3 running backs, and a tight end. I'm taking a very balanced approach, and I'll probably continue that until I get my quarterback, which will be relatively soon. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other thing to remember on Team 1, Flipberger, he's got to start 3 receivers in the flex. So he needs to get that third receiver, and we'll see. Maybe he's got a guy in mind that's a late pick that he feels great about, and that's why
I feel like there's
some of these running backs.
I feel like there's a ton of value at wide receiver, guys that I feel really comfortable taking. Throughout the course of the range of, at every price range, right? At just about every tier, there are receivers that I really love. I'm going to go ahead and grab another running back here. Again, the news today, Matt Breida is going to get maybe a 35% share. He's a huge, big play threat. I feel like, now I've got, Elliott and Chubb. They're going to be my starters early on. Maybe I can get a flex out of Jonathan Taylor. That's possible. But Breida gives me a guy that I could probably play on any given week.
Yeah, he's got some good.
And he'll get hurt, and then he'll leave, and then he'll come back, and then he'll run and make a long touchdown run. Henry Ruggs, the interesting pick. Deebo Samuel, an interesting pick as well. I think some riskier guys. CeeDee Lamb, I like him, like the talent. Not sure about the role, but that big playability is of interest. Deebo Samuels could miss 8 weeks. We just don't know. We'll see how that plays out. That may have been an auto pick. Henry Ruggs, though, a guy that's going to open up in the slot, it sounds like, for the Raiders. They really like what he does and look for him to be used a lot in like jet sweeps, bubble screens, plays that allow him to use his run after the catch and his speed in that way as well as in going deep. So interesting picks. Some of these, we're kind of in that range of wide receiver where there's a ton of upside. Not all of it is proven.
Yeah, ADP is starting to go out the window here a little bit, where you can start reaching and getting to fill your positions and looking at players that you think have upside.
Yeah, that's a wide receiver heavy team there, Team 3. Still no running back, a true zero running back approach,
Yes.
which is very odd. You would think at some point an algorithm would say, this person needs a running back. I feel like I should get in there and draft for him
If we
at
could.
this point.
So tomorrow we're doing a AMA, Ask Me Anything. I forget the time. Do you remember off the top of your head?
What were we going to do? Was it 1 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern?
That sounds right. We'll
Yeah,
send out an
double check
email
that.
with a link, but it'll be live on our YouTube channel also.
Yeah, let me double check that because I'm not. I think that's what we.
Oh, we got another quarterback. On Crowder, the guy was kind of just thinking maybe he'll come back.
Yeah, Crowder, I think is a. I'm surprised he's kind of been lingering around there as long as he has.
Yeah, he would have been nice to get him with my 9th pick. Now we've got 8 quarterbacks gone, if I'm counting right.
Yep, might be time. I'm looking at the list of guys available. Yeah, right. So, like, if I don't get one here, it's a pretty long swing around. I could get caught in a run. So I may just, there's tons that I like here. I mean, I'll come back around and I'll get a second quarterback I really love, but I'll probably not do my reach quarterback. A lot of times in these cases, I'll reach up for a quarterback a little ahead. But at this point, there's so many available that I feel comfortable with. I'll probably just take someone, let's see. We'll let this one time out here. Got about 15 seconds left.
Time to think. Yeah, I got to start planning this out here a little bit.
All right, Justin Jefferson, and yet another wide receiver for the auto draft team. I'm going to go ahead and take a safe play because I'm going to maybe reach for a little bit of an upside guy. So I'm going to go with Carson Wentz here. Could have gone with Josh Allen. I feel like he has a very high floor as well. But Wentz is, look, he's 4,000 yards each of the last, 3 years?
Yeah, and he had a disastrous year last year and finished 8th fantasy quarterback in the NFL. That's not bad for a disaster.
Yeah, I expect his receiving core to be better. All right, so the schedule.
When you and I draft, we have to watch that because you and I like Wentz. And thanks a lot for taking him.
You're welcome.
Think about it. Just kidding.
So just to get back to that schedule, I wanted to touch on. I confirm what we're going to do. It is the Wednesday. It'll be 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll sit here and we'll just take questions, do a video chat with you. Thursday, mock draft again at 8 p.m. Eastern. Friday, 3 p.m. and Ask Me Anything. And we'll do that on Mondays as well. So Ask Me Anything is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. And mock drafts Tuesday and Thursday at 8. We may add to that, if they get popular and you all, feel like you really want them. Sony Michel. Oh, that's an auto pick for sure.
Another quarterback is gone. Now we're starting to get to that point.
So there you are on the clock, Sterling Shepard, Tom Brady. The range of quarterbacks here going as expected. Not sure. We'll see if it turns into a little bit of a run. I hope so I don't feel stupid if we're not waiting. But
well, see, I'm on the list. I have 3 guys in front of me. 2 of them have quarterbacks. So the worst thing is 1 quarterback's going to go. So technically speaking, I should not draft a quarterback here unless I want to go bang bang with 2 of them. So let me see if there's a player here that I just love right now that I want to take, which of course I probably
yeah, interesting question here from Greg Link again. When drafting, how much do you care? Pay attention to the bye weeks. My wide receiver so far, I have 2 on a week 10 bye. My lineup will change over the season. So how much does it affect your decision? It's only a hair splitter, right? Like if I run into a week where I have a lot of guys on bye, I'll deal with it and get past it for the most part. And this late in drafts, I'm not really paying attention to the bye weeks as much. I will look at my quarterbacks, so I don't have two quarterbacks. It's mostly the onesie positions that I'm worried about, just so I don't have to make a free agent move. And I'm guessing I should have enough depth here overall for not, to not worry about it, and I can get bye week again, especially at wide receiver where I feel like there's tons of depth and quality depth. So you just took Anthony Miller, a guy who was very promising down the stretch last year.
He's got a lot of talent. There's some other guys out there I picked him over with, which I may regret, but
yeah, should have some improved quarterback play this year because why? It can't get worse. No. Actually, Trubisky's week-to-week scoring, again, I talk about that weekly average. It's something to look at. You might be surprised if you go into your commissioner site and see what his weekly average scoring was. Brian Wright loved Ruggs, D. Jackson Hardman late. I totally agree with you. D. Jackson has been a way overlooked commodity, and he'll be amazing those 3 games he's really healthy for.
Yes,
I agree with you.
Thank you, Philip, for how many games did he have last year? Was it 1?
I think it was 2, but he was really good in them.
Okay. So if he has a good game, you want to trade him, right?
Maybe so. Look, if he stays healthy, he's going to have, I think a third. For me, he's an ideal best ball player, right? Hardman too. I mean, you don't know week to week, and he just was selected. Zach Moss, interesting, had a guest on from WGR Radio in Buffalo, who is a fantasy player. He's currently in a 32-team IDP 50-round draft with me. Mike Shop, who said Zach Moss is the only Buffalo Bill he's drafting this year.
Ooh. And, that's why I was thinking of taking instead of Anthony Miller, but I thought I could get him later. And I was wrong. Well, that's good, interesting. What does he think? Does he think he's actually going to get more?
He thinks he's going to get kind of a Frank Gore workload, but with more ability than Frank Gore.
Interesting.
And he just doesn't trust the rest of them, at the prices they're going at. It's not like he wouldn't buy him. Keyshawn Vaughn, pretty late pick for him, I think. I don't think that's horrible value, 10th round.
Yep.
I don't know how this is going to play out, and I think when you're starting to toss some darts at this point, that's not a bad dart to toss.
Now, what's interesting in the board is there's only there's no team to my left, which will be 8 players taking twice, that hasn't already taken a quarterback. Everybody's taken 1 quarterback.
So you're going to wait another round?
I'm thinking about it, but I'm not going to. But
because I might take the player you want.
That's correct. And people will start taking 2 quarterbacks, even though we're only drafting to 13 rounds as a mock. But 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, depending how deep your roster is, you definitely want to. I'm just going to take Stafford and not have to think about it. And I'm leaving Allen on the board.
Yeah. Well, look, man, Stafford was top 5, the games he was healthy. You make a pretty good argument. And again, if you listen to Mike Shop, he would make a pretty persuasive case that Josh Allen's floor is not as high as I think it is. And I do think it's fairly high. I think the rushing ability, but he wonders if some of that isn't going to go away by design and if some of his problems with accuracy are going to keep him from being an effective passer.
I like him, but I agree. I'm not sure about his ceiling when he can have the big games. And we know Matthew Stafford can have those big games.
But it is very interesting to see him sitting out here this late.
Yeah, it's very late. What do we got? 12 quarterbacks going, roughly?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and one team's already taken 2. Arch Grimm has got 2, Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. And there goes Josh Allen.
All right.
Now, let's see.
So we're getting into the range here. It's entirely possible. There's a quarterback I really like. Anyone who's read my work or listened to me on the radio knows who it is. I'm not going to say it in case Zero Dark 30 is not one of those people. But I like to double up a lot. No, a lot of times what I'll do, as I explained before, is I'll take the upside, the reach a little bit, and grab them early and then come back around and find, the Matthew Staffords or the Aaron Rodgers and not very often the Josh Allens. But they'll usually be a very serviceable guy if I wait till round 9 and 10 to double up. And that's just something I like to do a lot. Look, I could wait till later. There is a quarterback I like way late in drafts that I think is going ridiculously late. I'll talk about him here when we get closer to the end of this draft. But guys with some ability or even demonstrated ability to well exceed their ADP. And that's something you should always be looking for. And you should also go, and there goes Kerryon Johnson. So I could get my next quarterback here, a guy I like an awful lot. It was Daniel Jones. Love the upside. And the thing about drafting him is the first 4 weeks of his schedule are brutal, right? And it's possible you don't really need to draft him. Maybe someone who does draft him will drop him after a tough first 4 games. I'm kind of two minds of this. It's a weird season, and I don't know if defenses are going to be up to speed the first month, right? Maybe offenses are just going to fool the hell out of them, and defenses will be running around with their hair on fire, not able to keep up. But either way, I think that middle section of the season, I don't like the Week 16 Baltimore game for Daniel Jones, but I think having him and Carson Wentz all managed to get through this somehow.
And this is a great example of one quarterback starting leagues is you got Lamar and Patrick above you on the board who went in the second and the third rounds. Those are very expensive picks, but there's a good chance those guys will be the top 2 quarterbacks, and you haven't even have a little bit of a level. But you got 2 really good quarterbacks that Wentz has already proven he can be a top 5 quarterback if he can stay healthy and the team can stay healthy. And Daniel Jones showed a lot of promise as soon as he can solve some of his fumbling problems. So you only had to spend a 9th and a 10th round, and if one of those guys, jumps into the top 5, you've made a great pick. Great set of picks.
Yeah, if any of you out there want to see, I read off the schedule. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat here as well for the rest of this week. And then now this will be the normal schedule going forward as well. So we're coming back around. John Brown, one of my favorite players in the drafts, and still no running back for Team 3. I love John Brown. I know Mike Schaap wouldn't draft him. I would. I think he's a great play and a great value, and I get that not everyone's going to agree with that, but I really think that people, look, I think number one, I don't know that Stephon Diggs is going to be a bust. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's not been like the most consistently high-end guy, and he's going to a new home, and the quarterback, maybe his skill set doesn't suit him ideally. Hopefully he surprises me and makes me feel foolish when all this is said and done, but I don't think so, and I think I'd rather have John Brown.
We got some doubling up of tight ends here with Flipberger and BS Sully. And again, with these rules, you can start 2 tight ends because the flex includes the tight end. So.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look and see if anything there appeals to me at the tight end position as well. I have a lot, drafted very early, so obviously I'm going to play the guy I drafted early pretty much every damn week. All right, so. But that said, if players get hurt. And so as I'm looking at, Andrews, I see he has a week 8 bye. This will be a place where I will pay attention to the bye. And at least one of the players I would have in my crosshairs here also has a week 8 bye. But I might play it safe and go off the board and talk about a tight end that I really like a lot. And that's Jack Doyle. Look, I love these upside guys. I think they're great plays, whether it's TJ Hawkinson, etc. But if you look at the numbers that Doyle racked up, number one, the Colts run one of the tight end heaviest targeted offenses in the league. And if you look at Doyle's numbers after Eric Ebron was hurt last year, he was putting up phenomenal numbers down the stretch. Need him to stay healthy. But I think he's a really overlooked play, almost as much as the quarterback I'll talk about here shortly. So any trends that will jump out at you, Emil, that you feel need to be addressed?
Well, I'm interested that these people are doubling up on tight ends that quick, but I think when the value starts to go down at running back and receiver, with the added flux. I think that's why that's happening. You know, and the doubling up of quarterbacks, you know, that's pretty typical, I think. So things are about what I expected. I'm glad I took Stafford in the you know, the bottom of the 10th, because already 3 other quarterbacks have gone, and I probably would have not got who I wanted.
Joe Burrow, Daniel Jones, Josh Allen after your pick. Some interesting. Antonio Gibson, I think, you know, people are a little on him because of the news, obviously, of Darius Geis. Still don't have a real strong feeling for me personally what the role is going to be for him. I do think he was going to get plenty of usage, though, before as a wide receiver or split out of the backfield in the slot, etc. So interesting pick there. Jalen Reagor, a guy I have a blind spot for, because if Alshon Jeffrey, who could be available week 1. We don't know that he is. We don't know that he isn't. But our man Adam Kaplan, who covers that team pretty closely, says it's entirely possible that Jeffrey's ready to go week 1. So if there is a Jeffrey, there is a Deshaun Jackson. Reagor plays behind them, and not necessarily he's the 3. So interesting to see where he goes. Chase Edmonds will play. I love him as a late-round play. This is not the person with Kenyon Drake, because Emil Cadlick has him. How do you feel about that, getting sniped on your handcuffs?
And, you know, I don't look at a handcuffs that early. I apologize. If I'm going to draft a guy in the first, whatever. I probably should have thought of that, but I just don't think about handcuffs as much as I probably should.
I think I do more with Dalvin Cook. I pretty much do, because I do feel like Madison comes right in. I don't know. Chase Daniels seems like a really good play to me. So does Eno Benjamin 4 rounds later, right? And especially in best ball. So, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with you. Not everyone needs to be a handcuff. There goes Deshaun Jackson right there, well after Reagor. So interesting pick there. I'm just trying to look at some of the construction of these teams and see, you know, still team 8, not heavy on running back. 3 running backs. You have 3 running backs.
Oh, I better get another one.
I think 5 is the most I see on any team.
Yeah, I forgot to go back
4
and
to
look
5.
at the guy who took 4 running backs, team 12. He ended up with Stephon Diggs and DJ Clark, and also Hardman is what he's got so far at wide receiver.
Yeah, DeAndre Washington goes, a guy that you should expect to be the number 2 behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and maybe share some time with him. He was really solid down the stretch for the Raiders last year when Josh Jacobs was hurt. The Chiefs saw this, picked him up, talked to Pete Sweeney of Arrowhead Pride over the weekend, covers the team on a daily basis. He said that exact same thing and confirmed my feelings. And he wasn't entirely sure that Washington, had they not drafted Edwards-Helaire, Pete Sweeney felt that Washington would be a guy who cut into Damian Williams' playing time. So worth noting that, you know, a lot of people are wondering about Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson, and maybe they should be wondering more about DeAndre Washington at this point.
And you can get him pretty late.
Yeah, well, Allen Lazard, too. I mean, I think maybe there's Damian Harris, interesting play there. But you got Allen Lazard. I mean, he's the wide receiver, too, for Aaron Rodgers. There's something to be said for that, especially without a truly proven tight end. We don't know what Jay Sternberger is yet.
That's a good point.
So a lot of talk that they really want to see if they can get something out of EQ St. Brown this year. Like maybe, you know, that he's a guy that could still develop, and Baker Mayfield, the first quarterback for Team 12 here. How do I say that? I can't even say that. I remember when I could read. It was a great time.
That's a good one. 2 more rounds. Obviously, this is a mock, so we're not going all down to 16 or 17 or 18. Duke Johnson. Huh. So what have I got here? I've got
Interesting comment. Got to go 4 RBs to start. Pick 11 has it right. Like, yeah, okay. I mean, look, I like Jacobs and I love Sanders. I think that's a great one too. So do you really need to add that level of depth at that point? Maybe you'd be better off with a higher end wide receiver than Stephon Diggs and DJ Chark. Although, I think those are both fine. They're fine. He's only got 3 wide receivers though. And one of them is Mecole Hardman, who maybe plays last year. It was like a 40% less snap share. Just seems a little risky to me. So you've got 5 running backs, one of them a little bit of a speculative play in Damian Harris, and 3 wide receivers when you need to start all 3. So we'll see. Also, I think that's an auto pick.
Oh, okay. I didn't
team. So
attention.
Yeah, much like Team 3 went 30 wide receivers to start. And just now got their first running back in round 11, who's actually a wide receiver in Antonio Gibson.
Yeah,
I think this is a rough draft.
I don't think I think this is happening on purpose. Just kidding. Tyrell Williams has lost some mojo, huh?
Yeah, and I wonder if he's not one of those overlooked commodities to a degree. I mean, they added a lot of weapons, but he had a touchdown catch every game for 5 games until he hurt his foot, and then then he couldn't get on the field, wasn't at full speed. So I thought he stepped up nicely in an offense that needed someone desperately to step up. We'll see how he fits in with the newcomers. Brian Edwards also going to have a role of ZX. Ruggs will work in the slot, might hurt Hunter Renfrow. Joshua Kelly, you know what you just did, right? You tore my heart out, Emil Cow.
Took Joshua Kelly. I said you better take him by the 11th round. Did I forget to tell you that?
You forgot to tell me that part. I thought he would wait. I thought he would wait till the very end. By the way, everyone, HBO Hard Knocks debuts tonight after we're done with this draft.
Yeah.
I believe it's probably coming up at the top of this hour. So I'm going to enjoy that. Rams and Chargers. This might be one of the better looks we have at the the day-to-day goings on at training camp for any teams, right? And I'm interested to see what Tyrod Taylor looks like. How he interacts with Austin Eckler. Are they going to have the same connection that we saw with Phillip Rivers? Same with Hunter Henry. And the Rams, we're going to be looking for how that running back committee is going to play out. Sean McVay's been gaslighting us for weeks now, saying it's a 4-man committee.
Yep, that's going to be fun to watch. I usually don't watch that, but I think I will this year.
Having Chark and TY, I don't see that he has TY. Where's TY? He doesn't have TY. So I see what you're saying, Kyle. I just think in a league where you got to start 3 wide receivers, one of them being Mecole Hardman. Look, it's an auto pick team. It's not a human is not picking it. So I don't think it was an actual strategy. I'm not sure it was a good move. I think I'd prefer to have more wide receivers in this league because you got to start 3. And you can use some in the flex. And Mecole Hardman is not a full-time player. So I see your point. I'm just not sure it's the best strategy, and I'm not sure the algorithm has done this fellow a good service.
Darrell Henderson just
so
the guy I was hoping would
I was going to look for another running back here, and I may go with I was going to look for another running back here, and it would have been Joshua Kelly had he been there, a guy that I think Darrell Henderson, who was my next pick, just went off the board. So, all right, Kyle. Yeah, sure. None of those, Yeah.
Well, I was actually going to either take Henderson or Joshua Kelly, and it was a tough call.
I think Boston Scott here. I don't know if it's going to be a solid role or not. I feel like I kind of already have that in Matt Breida, but I'll live with that. I thought Adrian Peterson, for a lead back, as we see it right now, is a really good pick. Would have loved to have him there as well. Kelly.
Adrian Peterson. He could end up doing well.
So we're heading into the final round for our purposes. Again, I put the schedule coming up here. If you're not subscribed to the website, you should go check it out, footballdiehards.com/free trial if you haven't seen it before. If you have seen it before and you insist on going immediately to update your subscription, use the promo code DIEHARDS to get a 15% discount. Tons of stuff available to you, full rankings, all our tools, digital magazines, the whole wide array of news and notes and information. including our configurable cheat sheet, which you can set up to meet your roster requirements and scoring needs, all available to you. So don't hesitate to jump on and enjoy that as well. Looks like football's coming, people. The NFL loosened up a little more today. They are now allowing players to travel for tryouts. I talked to Blair Walsh, free agent kicker right now, who is about scheduling some trips to go visit teams. And Devontae Freeman, I'm sure, would love to go visit some teams. So they are now cleared to make those moves and show up. They can only have a certain number show up at any given time for tryouts, but that's more than they've been able to do, and the league inexorably moves forward with their plan. And look, we can all say there's a lot of uncertainty right now, but one thing is not uncertain. The NFL intends to play football. It might get cut off at the pass, entirely possible. We don't know what the hell is going to happen, but we know that the NFL, every step of the way, don't do free agency. It's a bad look with people, with this pandemic starting, to pay people hundreds of millions of dollars, and yet they did it. And then people said, oh, don't draft NFL. It's not a good look to be in Vegas. Okay, we'll do it in our basement. And then they drafted. And then they said, well, you can't have OTAs. They said, oh, turn on Zoom. And boom, they had OTAs on Zoom. So they've been pressing forward. They have a plan in place. Something I know the colleges, the Big Ten and the Pac-10 both, canceled the seasons, or at least moving them to spring. They didn't seem to have a plan, a unified plan, the colleges, right? And I think that's the difference between the NFL and the colleges right now. The NFL had a plan. I can think back to early in this whole process where basically Roger Goodell reportedly told everyone that worked there, said, look, man, hope is not a strategy. We're going to have a plan and we're going to carry it out. And I think they've done that pretty well. And, certainly there's going to be hiccups along the way. Ask baseball. But I think, just listening to some of the players talk that, they're going to be on point. They're trying to keep their teammates, on point and have a little discipline. I think it's very easy.
Alshon Jeffries actually went here in the top of the 13.
Yeah, I'm going to see if the algorithm lets me have the player I want here.
One last pick here.
Justin Jackson was Antonio Gibson and Justin Jackson as your two running backs, probably not the best approach, although a pretty good pick there. No fan. I get that. So I'm going to pick a player that that looks like there's a ton of wide receivers I do love here. I'm going to pick one with a little bit of upside, I think, in N'Keal Harry, who could be the Patriots wide receiver one. Cam Newton likes the big catch radius, people, according to every receiver the Carolina Panthers ever drafted while he was there. Devin Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin, Brandon LaFell, a lot of almost fielded a basketball team there. So, and I think N'Keal Harry has a little better skill set than those guys. But either way, I mean, there's 20 receivers I could have taken there. I might have taken Preston Williams had I not already had Devontae Parker on this roster. One of the quarterbacks I'm kind of surprised has not gone is Ryan Tannehill. If you watched him last year when he took over from Week 7 for Marcus Mariota, he was a top 10 quarterback. He was a top 5 quarterback on a regular basis. Some of that was based on efficiency. I know I think the perception is that it's a run-heavy offense, and it is. Yet still, there was Ryan Tannehill winning titles for people last season down the stretch. So
yeah, he actually was a top 5 quarterback the last 4 or 5 weeks, which is stunning when you mentally think about what Henry did at running back.
Yeah, it was a pretty effective offense. So some areas plays. I think Cam Newton here is not I think that's a great dart toss. I mean, I think every quarterback here is a pretty good dart toss.
And Goff and Roethlisberger looks like they're going to be left out of the top 13 picks here.
Kyle M remains pretty certain that 5 running backs to start a draft is the way to go. I'm pretty sure that's not the way I'm going, but running backs are important. There's no doubt about it. Larry Fitzgerald, don't see him go off a lot. Preston Williams, Steve Cadlick, wise pick there, I think, as we close out the last 3 picks. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes, and I'll answer any other questions you have in the chat before we wrap this up. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow, and ask me anything. We'll do it right here on the YouTube. We will answer your questions until you tire of asking them.
Hey, Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Somewhere Kyle M is very happy.
And that's an excellent pick. He finished like 8th or 9th at the fantasy quarterback last year. Quite well in the second half after they played very poorly early in the year.
So wrapping up here. That was good. It was we're looking at about an hour and a half draft for 13 rounds. Not too bad given the number of non-drafters in the room. Again, if you want to do your own mock drafts, go to footballdirects.com. Use the mock draft simulator. If you're the only one drafting, it'll be very quick. Your only limitation or the only thing keeping you from having it instantaneous is how long you're picking. You can do it in a matter of minutes, do them over and over. Thanks for coming, Brian Wright. Appreciate you. Thanks, Phil Kleins. Thanks, Kyle M. Thanks, everybody who stuck around to watch. We appreciate you sticking around. We appreciate the questions and the interaction. We look forward to doing more of it over the course of August as Brandon Ayuk goes with the next to last pick. So that gives him his fourth receiver. Having pick 11, I feel like you do really well with 2 RBs to start and still get high floor 2s. I agree with that, James Peluso. I think pretty much in any case, look, I want to have 2 super high-end running backs, no doubt about it. I'm fine having 3. I think once you start taking 4, you're going a little overboard. Having 3 after the first 4 rounds is, I think, pretty reasonable.
Well, if you look at building a roster, you want to get top players at each skill position. So, instead of taking a 4th running back, if you could get a top 5 tight end at that point, or maybe you've got a sleeper wide receiver that you think is going to be a top 8 or 9, I think that's where I look at, because you need to get good players at each position. That's where you win championships.
You also win by having some of the guys you draft late get a little luck and come on a little better than, outperform their ADP, right? And so I think I have a couple of those guys in Matt Breida. Not so much Boston Scott. I think you have one of them for sure in Joshua Kelly. So Christopher Gray, mostly pleased with his draft. I don't blame him. I think it was a pretty solid draft, starting out with Derrick Henry, 2 wide receivers in Julio Jones and Kenny Golladay, followed up with David Johnson and David Montgomery, 2 backs who maybe even if I don't like their huge upside, I love the path to workload. And I'm not saying there's not some upside. So like that, Jordan Howard, another guy that seems to have a pretty defined role, or at least, will be on the field enough to use him any given week. Marlon Mack, I hope he disappears at some point because my Jonathan Taylor.
You got T.Y. Hilton, who, if he can stay healthy, obviously is a great receiver, and you got him in the 6th round.
Yeah, there's a whole range of those wide receivers, whether it's A.J. Green, T.Y. Hilton, Devontae Parker, Marquise Brown, Will Fuller, who I think could have huge seasons and, put up wide receiver 1 numbers every week. I mean, it's entirely possible. So, Will Fuller won't be on the field every week. I lied. But if he did, he would be capable of putting wide receivers.
Yeah, this is a nice.
I'm not even knocking you, Christopher. I don't think it's, I was only half joking because of my investment in Jonathan Taylor. I mean, starts the season as maybe a 1-1 punch is what they're describing it. I do think Taylor's the way better player. I think they drafted him for a reason. Mack in his final year of the contract, but where you got him is like by no means not a great. Nothing the matter with that pick. Well, I don't think rookie running backs will take as many lumps, especially ones that are 220 pounds and run a 4.3, 940. But especially with that offensive line. But point well taken, rookies in general, Kyle. I agree with that. But more wide receivers to me than the running backs, at least the high-end running backs. I think they're going to get plugged in fairly early. I do this strategy a lot, Kyle, the back-to-back quarterbacks. As long as I'm waiting late, I do it.
And it's not actually completely back-to-back. Tannehill still hasn't been taken. He's right up there. He won't be taken. So, like if you look at my draft, I took only 1 quarterback. But if I was going to take a second quarterback, which I usually do, and if we'd have gone to 16, 17 rounds, I could still take Tannehill in the 14th round, who, again, is a guy who could end up being a top 5 to top 8 quarterback, as he did last year. So you don't have to – the reason you take them quickly when we talk back-to-back is you usually get to a point in that draft where there's 4 or 5 guys you want. And because you took a lower probability quarterback, it's important to consider taking 2, depending on the depth of your roster, to give yourself a higher probability of success. You're using late picks.
Once I hit that 9th, 10th, 11th round, and sometimes it's, even a little later. But if there's a quarterback I really like, I'll reach up to get him. And this year I really like Daniel Jones, that early schedule notwithstanding, and that final week against Baltimore. If you look at his numbers last year, he had some really super high-end scoring weeks, especially in best ball. I think he's a great play. But if you're going to grab him, he's a pretty popular pick. So sometimes I'll reach up and get him around early. When I do that, oftentimes I'll get a Matthew Stafford, but I'll do it right after. I'll come back right in the next round. And I did that in this draft too. I think Carson Wentz is a super steady play, has been great last few years under all circumstances. And then I came back and got Daniel Jones the next round because I didn't want someone else to get him. So that's
Daniel
what's
Jones has a heck of a receiver on his team. Oh, what's his name? Darius Slayton. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he also has Saquon Barkley. He also has Evan Ingram. He also has Sterling Shepard. He also has Golden Tate. Down an offensive lineman and Nate Solder, but I'll take that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, James, Emil was being a smart ass because he drafted Slayton. So
yeah, I'm just hoping that he can get over his fumbling problems. He was a rookie last year. I expect him to grow a long way. Look what Lamar Jackson did in 1 year. He could hardly throw the ball his rookie season.
Right. And that's one of the things. So if you're looking for that year 2 quarterback who's going to make a huge jump, maybe it is Kyler Murray. You're also paying for it when it's Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. You're not paying for it with Daniel Jones, and that's the reason that I like him in that late role. And I think if you look at the, just in general, the numbers that he produced were pretty solid. I'll bring up a couple of the things that have really appealed to me about him is the numbers I like. Okay, so Jones ranked in the top 5 in fantasy points of one quarterback 4 times. Only Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, and Jameis Winston did it more. He had 25-plus points 4 times as a rookie. That's pretty damn good. He's a solid runner, and he has a great supporting cast. So, the numbers kind of bear that out, that there's maybe room for a second-year jump. Look, he's not going to be Lamar Miller. I'm not pretending that, but – that's kind of the
top 8 quarterback, and you got 2. Obviously, if you could be in a position where you could do some streaming with
Wentz and James Caluso makes the point. If he, look, it's the ADP. Like last year, Lamar Jackson won a lot of titles, right? He won you a lot of titles because you didn't draft him in the 2nd round. You drafted him in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th round, and maybe you would have won you some leagues. Maybe some people find out about that 2nd round value. But that's the key, is finding these guys before they make the jump and getting them a better ADP.
Excellent point. That's exactly what you're looking in all positions. You're looking for sleepers. The beauty about the quarterback with a one QB start in most leagues is there's so many guys around the 10 to 15 range, and it changes from year to year, that could end up being top 8 quarterbacks, and you can get them late. ADP low.
So Kyle M thinks that Taylor went 5.4. He did. I think that's pretty good value. But he's the handcuff, not Mac. Mac's still the mailman. Well, that's possible. That's within the range of the possible outcomes. But you say it definitively, Kyle, like you know it to be a fact when actually it's not. So, that's part of the fun of this game. Everyone can run out and have a belief. But I still believe, behind that offensive line, even if both guys are playing, and I don't think it's a handcuff, I think they called it a 1-1 punch. And look, Naheem Hines is going to be in the mix too. They talked about that as well. They come from San Diego, the coaching staff, where they used Danny Woodhead as what they call the situational starter. Maybe we see Hines do that as well. I just think they're a run-first team, and that's why they drafted Taylor. Expecting him to be the handcuff, though, I think that's a little bit of a reach. But we'll see. Range of possible outcomes. All right, guys, we've hit the 7th or the 9:30 mark here. So we're going to call it a night. We will return tomorrow, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll send out an email link again and probably put it out on Twitter, etc., so you'll be able to find it. And we'll just ask questions, and we can discuss the possible range of outcomes for Colts running backs and everybody right here on the Football Diehards YouTube channel. Thank you very much for coming, and thanks for spending the evening with us.
Thank you.